Mark Nagel, he's a professor of sports and entertainment management at the University of South Carolina. Mark, thank you very much for your time this evening. Now, the Games operated under tightly controlled system to prevent the spread of COVID-19, as we know. How effective do you think was this health and safety policy at the Games?
Well, I think given the alternatives where you could have had entire delegations or large portions of a delegation or a team, for instance, a hockey team or a skating team that would be wiped out by COVID, I think there's a huge success because although we did have a few athletes who weren't able to compete, for the most part, all the events went off as planned and there weren't any major problems with getting most of the athletes able to compete.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt a lot of people, I'm sure, are glad that they've got their health and safety looked after, but it also must be bittersweet looking around, seeing these empty stadiums and doing the best they can to compete. Of course, testing was a crucial part of the Games, as well as this bubble of quarantine, the strategy that they put forward. How did it impact the athletes' experience, do you think, and their ability to compete? Was there a resignation that this is just how it had to be, or was there some resistance to the protocols?
Well, I think from a competition standpoint, it is focusing the athletes because really all you can do is practice, compete, and go back to your, essentially be alone, so to speak. We're not allowed to be in the community. I think what really detracted for the athletes was once their events were done, you couldn't really socialize. You couldn't go into the city. You couldn't go do tourism things. You couldn't really experience the richness of the Olympics because everything was on lockdown. So I think the competition went fine. It's just a lot of those other things that are just part of the experience just weren't available given COVID's presence.
Yeah, and such unusual times as well. And what would you say was your take of the closing ceremony? Did it live up to the usual expectations that closing ceremonies often have?
Yeah, it's always a fun thing to see exactly what they're going to do, how creativity is going to be displayed. So I think most of the athletes seem to be in awe of the experience, and I think it left a good mark on a very troubled games just because of things outside of the control dealing with COVID. So fortunately, there was no major issues. I think it was a nice stamp to finish the whole proceedings off tonight.
And as we look toward the Paralympics, what lessons do you think can be learned to help the Games be a success there?
Well, I think we'll have the same protocols. I'm hopeful that the Paralympics go off with even fewer problems. That the problems were very minimal in the grand scheme of how many thousands of athletes were there. But hopefully the Paralympics have a very similar, if not better, track record in regards to COVID, and everybody has a chance to compete and enjoy what they can given the circumstances of the Games.